I want to welcome the motion being brought forward by Sinn Féin and want to begin the motion, or my own contribution, by welcoming all the students in the gallery who came out in force this evening against this €1,000 increase in the student fees. Minister, I want to put it on the record that I have absolute great respect for you, but I absolutely do think that this is an argument and a fight that government are losing. And I would say that, Minister, because you made an assertion in your contribution earlier that opposition parties are using education as a political football. Yeah, you made that assertion. I would appreciate that, and I'd appreciate that if that was taken back, because you made that assertion about people like me, and I'm not using this as a political football. This is genuine. I'm the youngest member in this House. I came out of college, and the only reason I went to college, Minister, is because I had access to a SUSI grant. But 80% of the people across this country, Minister, don't have that same access to a full grant. It's in your amendment. I wouldn't have been able to achieve education, third-level education, if it wasn't for the support of the state. That support now is not being afforded to these very students. The same support that was given to students for the past 2 years. I would also outline that this is also a matter for the Taoiseach, who waved this in the face, that it was a cost of living temporary measure. But his party come out then and criticise their brother party in government on the decision that's being made. So the decision that was being made within the programme for government, when you sat down with party colleagues and you sat down with Fine Gael colleagues, was that we'd continue to reduce the student contribution fee every single year over this Dáil term. And when I saw that, Minister, I accepted that perfectly. And I'm sure students across the country would have accepted that. But when you're at home with your parents or your guardians, Minister, you're waiting for a grant to get approved. You are again reminded of your place in this society. And what I mean by that, Minister, it means you realise how little you are, how little valued you are by this state if you have to rely on a grant to let you go to college. That isn't acceptable. Third level and further education should be affordable to all. And I listened earlier with great interest to the Taoiseach, clapping himself and his party on the back for what they have done. And I don't doubt for a minute, and I won't question the very good things that were done in education over the years. But what about these students? What is being done for them? There's great things done in the past. Niamh Bhreathnach, 1990s, Labour Party Minister. Great opportunities she gave to students. I'm not doubting for a minute that your party have done good things. I absolutely will accept that and appreciate that. But what about these people? What about these students? What about these families? It's those very families, Minister, that are literally now not knowing whether or not they'll have access to it, to further education. You spoke earlier in relation to the financial framework. So does that mean, Minister, that when you look at the financial framework, that you will reduce student contribution fees? So the budgetary process, I absolutely respect that. I respect it. But does that mean, in that budgetary process and in that financial framework, that you will reduce student fees? That's the ultimate question that needs to be answered. And the very simple question that needs to be answered is, in September, will these students and their families have to pay $3,000 or $2,000? I think that's a very simple and fair question, and it's been asked on numerous occasions now, I suppose, over the course of the last 9 days since the announcement was made. In 2020, your party leader said, "We're also conscious of the additional cost in terms of living away from home in a further city or town, and the cost of that is quite significant over the last few years." That was a comment that Micheál Martin made in 2020. Does he believe that these additional costs are gone. 18% of purpose-built student accommodation in my own county of Cork, Minister. I know people, friends of mine, who are paying 700 and 800 and 900 euros a month for rent in Cork in a damp room, mouldy room, with no light, no window, and that's what they're living in. And we don't seem to be progressing. So when your leader said he's conscious of the additional cost in 2020, is he not conscious of the costs now? Costs of running a car, costs of homes, costs of being able to rent in the city or the town that you're studying in. The costs of groceries. We're talking about it today, how much it's going up. This is just an additional economic barrier that you're placing on what we would consider the Great Leveller. And we spoke about the Great Leveller in this chamber not so long ago. And during the general election, Simon Harris, the Taoiseach, said third-level education fees will need to be phased out in the coming years to allow for the total abolition of third-level education contribution fees. Yet, however, mere months later, we hear the reports of plans to increase this fees. This not only betrays the trust of students and their families, but also undermines the principle of accessible education for all. He took to an Instagram, I think. It was an Instagram story he took to. Let me in on a little secret, I think he said. Let me in on a little secret that we're going to abolish third-level education fees over the course of the next government. It was in the programme for government, so he obviously got it through at programme for budget negotiations. But ultimately, Minister, I'm standing here after being outside and listening to the stories of students who had come up to me and come up to our party members outside, and I personally wouldn't be, and I'll put this on the record at all, I wouldn't be somebody who would just go to the protest for the sake of going to a protest. I'm not that kind of a person. But I would go to a protest, Minister, when issues like this are of such serious concern to the very people who are sitting in that gallery. And it's disappointing, Minister, that amendments are being made. We need to know what students and their families will be paying. I'm sure you're getting emails about it, and your colleagues in government are. Will they be paying 3,000 or 2,000 euros? I respect the budgetary process, but I still, like the students above there, do not know what they will be paying in September.
Thank you, Deputy.